Hello, I'm Cindy Abbott, the Executive Director at Sanchez Art Center in Pacifica, and we're so happy to have you here today. Well, at least here virtually. And I hope that if you are in the area, that in addition to watching our and listening about the artists and the works in the Studio Art Quilt Associates Art Quilts 2 show, that you have the opportunity to come in and see them. We're really delighted to be able to share these works with you here on our virtual galleries, but I have to tell you, it pales and is as fabulous as these images are, it pales in comparison to seeing the pieces in person. So without taking any more time, I would like to introduce the show coordinator and member of Studio Art Quilt Associates, Barbara Kibbe, who's going to introduce the organization and the program. And then we'll be working through a number of the artists here and who will be sharing about their pieces. Barbara?
Yes, thank you, Cindy. And I should say that I second Cindy's point of view that if you can see these pieces in person, the depth and the dimensionality, the technique is so much more obvious, and also the scale. Many of these pieces are quite large. So Studio Art Quilt Associates is a global organization with 4,000 members, all of whom make art quilts. The definition of an art quilt for us is very broad. It's a layered and stitched artwork, or something that references the layered stitched construction. So not your typical traditional quilt, but occupying a broad range of artistic expression. This particular show originated in Southern California at the California Heritage Museum, and included 63 quilts. Many were multiples. Here at Sanchez, the gallery accommodated 28, 28 different artists represented by one piece each. It is a collaboration between Northern and Southern California and Northern and Southern Nevada. So this is a region with somewhere around 500 of the SAQA members. I think that's as much as I need to say. At the end, if there's time, I can talk a little bit about what else is upcoming in terms of exhibitions for Studio Art Quilt Associates. So Cindy, I'm going to turn it back to you to scroll through the gallery and invite the artists present to speak about their work.
Oh, thank you so much. So this first beautiful piece that we have up here is going to be spoken to by Aileen.
Hello, everybody. Some of you might know that I make tree quilts quite often. I'm quite interested in trees and I read books about trees, etc. So when I saw this photograph a friend of mine had taken on the Olympic Peninsula, I wanted to make a quilt of it. So it is showing a very old tree that died probably in a forest fire, because there's some charred areas at the bottom. And it is sheltering some new growth. The fern and the other little plants are growing in the shelter of that big old trunk of that tree. The way I approached it was I did it in a Ruth McDowell style piecing. Some of you will know what I mean by that. Actually piecing strips of fabric together on the sewing machine. But what made the realism is paint and Zucchinico inks. There's just so much paint and ink put on that fabric to make the curves. For instance, almost in the center, there's kind of a lumpy, maybe it was a broken off limb there or something. And I had put a piece of fabric in there that was actually 2 flowers. And I thought that would be interesting. Well, it wasn't. So I completely obliterated those flowers with ink and paint. So I guess that's it. Oh, one other thing, it's a double quilt. There's a backing quilt with the picture part of it applied to the backing quilt. I do that quite often rather than a traditional border. So I'm very happy to have this quilt going in California. Thank you.
It's wonderful. I'm glad to hear you supporting the trees.
Yeah.
Very important at this time.
Yes.
Angie.
Hi, everybody. So anyway, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So anyway, the inspiration for this quilt was a photo I took of my husband walking down the trail to the beach, not too far from where we live. And, you know, it's just such a beautiful day. Like I really, you know, just, it had to become a quilt. And this was kind of a fun and interesting challenge for me because I'd never made any sort of like sunset scenery before. And the sun in the original photo was like, it was really bright. It was like almost kind of too bright to look at. So in order to recreate that with fabric, I ended up using a piece of safety reflective fabric underneath a piece of polyester organza. And what I found was that the reflective fabric, even with the organza over the top of it, still catches the light and gives the sun that super bright appearance. But then the organza sort of helps blend the colors in with the rest of the sky. I used a layer of organza over the water in the ocean also. And that kind of just helps blend all those colors together. And then there's a couple layers of black tulle on top of the organza to make the shadows of the rocks and kind of in the front. And the entire quilt took about 201 hours to make from start to finish. And I was pretty happy with how it turned out.
Thank you for sharing those details. I can't wait to go back and look at it now that I understand a little bit more about its construction, because you do have a beautiful reflection of the sky and water. Barbara.
Yes, so this piece is a scrap quilt, essentially made from things I had in my stash right after we were put in shelter in place. And I was feeling kind of scrappy and like we can do this and optimistic. And I call it squared off, like a boxer in a ring squaring off for the fight. Each square is the motif is squares in squares. So every element is a square inside a square inside a square. There's a lot of embroidery, handwork and machine work, applique, and there are layered monoprints in the piece as well. So that you can see, and if you look up close at some of them, you'll realize there are 3 or 4 different layers, some encaustic monoprints, some block prints, stitched in and on and under. It's about 55 inches square, so it's a honkin' square of squares.
Thank you. I think that's one of the largest pieces we have in the show, yours and a couple of others of this very nice large scale, also with some glimmer in your fabrics. We're just going to scroll through folks who aren't here today with us so you can get a glimpse of the entire show. And I know we have Carol here now for this arrangement in green and black. Carol, are you unmuted? Okay, I'm not seeing Carol right now. We'll come back to this. Another large piece in an abstract of Kirby Cove here in Marin. See. Don't see Cynthia in the list either right now with us. This is the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Denise.
Hi. Thank you. I'm Denise Oyama Miller from Fremont, California, and my quilt is called Inflorescence. I am very much inspired by what I see outside. This is a cactus, and a puncha cactus that is around the corner from us. And it's just growing totally out of control. And a couple times a year, these flowers pop out, and they are absolutely inspiring to me. They start out as little red buds, and then they open into these beautiful yellow flowers. So I am deeply attracted to the flowers and to this kind of setting. So that's what inspired me. The way it's made, I use a technique called broken color, which basically means there is a line between every piece of fabric on this quilt. And if we could zoom in, which I don't think we can, but you can see an outline. It's a purple line that's between every piece of fabric. And it's a technique, it's a raw edge fusible technique that I use. And then I do free motion quilting at the end. I top this quilt off with, it's hard to see them, but little tufts, little beads to represent the little tufts of spines that are on the Apuncha cactus. So that's what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was one of the delights when seeing this piece in person, to see those beads added on, which was such a beautiful additional touch.
Thank you.
So, very vibrant. Jerry.
Hi there, I'm Jerry Patterson Kutras from Morgan Hill, California. And this is my quilt, Just Breathe. It was inspired when we took a trip up to the annual quilt show up in Sisters, Oregon. We were staying out at Black Butte Ranch just outside of Sisters. And at the end of the day, we were down by the clubhouse. We were going to go in for some dinner, and there's a little lake over there, a little lagoon. You can rent these canoes during the day, and it just seemed like the sun was setting, everything was calm again, and it just seemed to me like the little canoes were taking a deep breath and saying, okay, we've done our day well, now we've earned our rest. So I just loved it. It was just such a simple, wonderful, pleasant feeling to be around there. This quilt was done with both piecing and with applique. And normally I do like an applique, a raw edge applique, a fused raw edge applique, and then I go back over it with my sewing machine and stitch down the edges with a blanket stitch to make sure that it stays in place for me. And then I like to do a lot of echo quilting around my quilts. So thank you for inviting me today. I appreciate it.
This is indeed a very calming piece. It's really wonderful to sit and just stare at, very relaxing. I saw a note in chat that folks were saying if it could be shown full screen. These are being shown full screen, so it might be something in how you're viewing the program. And we will share with you then how to see these online on your own afterwards, where you can also then zoom in on the pieces and enjoy them at your leisure. Vibrant satin piece. Joyce.
Unmute here. Hi, I'm Joyce Patterson. I live in Ukiah, California, which is in Mendocino County. Not a great color description of this quilt, but this quilt, I would like to read you what the label on it says. This is called Conversations and Eavesdropping. And the label says Conversations versus Tweets. You can imagine where that one came from, since I made this in 2019. Encourage dialogue and eavesdropping. An unknown scarf designer created an environment for these delightful birds. I liberated them, rearranged them, and created new families and friends. So I did find this. I'm not sure, I guess it's a very fine batiste or a very fine cotton fabric that's very fluid and flexible. And so much so that I ended up taking the entire quilt and fusing it onto a background so that there would be some stability to it. I then kind of looked at where the birds were all sitting and cut them out in groups, looking at who was talking to who and who was eavesdropping and listening. And so they got put together with some kind of liberated piecing that I did on my machine. And then the birds were all quilted with black thread to give them some more definition to each of the birds. And the rest of it was pretty much free motion matchstick kind of quilting. And that's about it.
It's so charming.
Thank you.
We just want to talk with these birds more.
Yeah.
Thank you. Karen's not here. Amazing piece. Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine Pellman from Los Angeles, and a fashionista in quarantine is part of my series Word Salad Fashionistas and Girlfriends. And just to give you a sense of scale, each of the cartoons is 8 inches by 8 inches, and they're kind of sequenced of how I felt about the first spring of coronavirus. So the top one on the left was the first one when I'm like realizing I'm really in my yoga clothes a lot. And I was walking the dog probably 2 hours a day. And the word salad is made from commercial fabric. I just pull words out of fabric. And in this instance, I obviously did not have coronavirus, and it came out of a fabric that said computer network. So I just pieced it together to get the right word. And the second one was thinking about people who were letting their hair grow gray and not being able to manage their roots. And fortunately, I was ahead of them because I had let my hair grow gray a few years earlier and didn't have any dyed hair. So I was able to skip that. And then everybody was having strange dreams, including myself. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do something about coronavirus dreams. Plus, I was watching a lot of rom-coms on Netflix, like every single one they had. I didn't care if they were good or bad. And I was thinking, oh, well, I could let my hair grow and I could just put it in a top knot and that would solve the haircut. Until I was on a Zoom call with someone who had the top knot and I noticed it really didn't look very good. But I did it anyway for this piece, and instead of putting a chopstick in it, I used a screwdriver because I might have been using a screwdriver to fix something in my house. And then the last one is about succulents that I picked up from my walk. So we walked in all different neighborhoods, and I love to propagate. And so anyone who had a succulent I didn't have, where it looked like I could take a small piece, just a little piece, where they wouldn't notice it was gone, I would take that and go home and propagate it. And then the dachshund that you see, that's actually my dog, Petunia Olive, who accompanied me on the walks and hung out with me.
Well, this is a really wonderful document of the times, and thank you for doing it with such fun. Katie.
Hello. This was a painting inspired from a painting that I did many, many years ago. And when the pandemic started, I wasn't able to travel and find inspiration. So I saw this painting, it was at the top of my stairs, and I thought, well, I'll just make that into a quilt. And so I did the drawing, and it was so very complex that I sort of frightened myself. So I thought, well, you could do anything in a 5-inch format. You know, you can do anything for an hour a day, which was my rule during the pandemic, to do at least an hour of several different things. So that, coupled with the squares, I broke it into squares and started a new series called Grid Work. And so the painting had basically a lot of circles, had fabric applied to it, black and white graphics. And so then I just did a drawing of it and recreated it in commercial fabric. The painting, I do a lot of splatter work when I'm doing my painting. The painting was in acrylic on canvas. And so there's splatters everywhere. So I would take the little squares downstairs to, again, binge watch romantic comedies or whatever to keep me entertained, and do little French knots to replicate the splatter painting. And then they're quilted in each little square and put together with a little strip to format the lines of the grid. And so it's kind of quilted as you go, and in the back is all covered, all the seams are covered.
Thank you. And I appreciate you sharing how you made such a complex piece manageable, because it is intense in a wonderful way.
you.
Lori?
Hi, I'm Lori Mutalapassi. I live in Westminster, California in Orange County. And this is Midnight Swim. This jellyfish became my friend during the first half of 2020 when we were all staying home and not seeing our friends due to COVID. It was originally created for a challenge to make a quilt that was 90% black and white and 10% or less of one other color. So I chose maroon. My first thought about what I wanted to do was an animal, because I love doing portraits of animals. And I thought of a panda bear, but I wasn't interested because I had done a red panda the year before. So I started to think about sea creatures, and I did some research on the internet, and I found this beautiful fluorescent creature, a purple striped jellyfish. The young jellyfish, even though they're called purple striped, are maroon. So I decided to use my 10% as maroon. And I decided to make the quilt with the young jellyfish swimming at night in the deep, dark waters of the ocean. And it's made with cotton and batik fabrics. The jellyfish has a lot of lace in it. And the techniques, it's fused raw edge applique and machine quilting. If you can look closely, the waves in the black background of the water were quilted with midnight color superior glitter thread, which sparkles against the black background. And I'd like to just read you my artist statement, which sort of sums up how I felt during the time I was making this quilt. Even when a storm is raging over the ocean, this jellyfish swims in the calm waters of the ocean's depths. This reminds us that when we are dealing with the chaos caused by the coronavirus or by any other crisis, we can react calmly and wisely. If we dig deep into our emotional strength, we too can swim calmly through a storm caused by a crisis in our lives.
Thank you for sharing that story, and the midnight color glitter thread, which I was wondering about. It really sets the piece off when you see it in person. Lori Ann's not with us. This also has some beautiful beading on it. Lorraine, oops, let's see why I'm circling here. Apologies for that. While we're waiting for my internet connection here to come through, you can view these pieces online. Sanchez Art Center has a virtual gallery. It's all together in one word, Sanchez Art Center Virtual Galleries.org. So after this presentation, and let's see. Know why it's doing this, since we could go back. So we'll do that. But again, for your viewing afterwards, Sanchez Art Center Virtual Galleries.org. And the artist statements are all up on each piece. Oh no. As are a Zoom feature. So I am in a stable internet connection, so I'm not sure what's happening here. I'm going to stop my screen share for a minute and restart it and see what we can do here. Just go over and make sure. Hi, everybody.
And Cindy, while Cindy's working on the internet, I can share a little news about one of our about where Art Quilts 2 is going next. Sue Siefkin's on the webinar today, and her leadership has brought to us the opportunity to show many of the quilts in Art Quilts 2 at the Mistlin Gallery in Modesto later in the spring. And you'll all be hearing from Sue about the details around that. And then the other thing I wanted to say before we broke today is that our region's newest show, Prism Play, which will be a riot of color. It will be made up of panels, all 15 by 45 inches vertical, and each monochrome, making up prisms that will glide around your gallery space or museum walls. And it will open in May at the Peninsula Museum of Art for a 10-week run. So we'll share more about that. How are we doing, Cindy?
Well, I'm frozen on my other screen, so I am still trying. I know a few people mentioned about some of their processes and about the different types of stitching that you're doing. Maybe somebody can share with us for a bit more about what some of those words mean of the freeform and machine stitching.
Yeah, if I may interject, there's a question about echo quilting, and I was going to ask Jerry if she might want to answer that question right now.
That would be
Because
great.
somebody doesn't understand what echo quilting is, and you talked about it.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Basically, I think one of the best examples of echo quilting is if you've ever seen a Hawaiian quilt. And what it is you generally follow the shape of the image around it. And then you, with a second line and a third line. So it radiates out and it all echoes the original shape that you're starting with. And like I say, probably one of the best examples, if you've ever seen any of the beautiful Hawaiian quilts, the women do them by hand there rather than machine, and they do the echo quilting. So imagine that you would have a flower in the middle with many petals around it. So you would stitch around those petals and just radiate out from that.
Another good example is a contour map.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And if you've got some other questions, if folks would like to ask them in the Q&A, I have seemed to have lost our virtual galleries. I'm really apologize for this, but I know there's some other questions on process.
Can I just say something? Do you all know that Forced to Flee, the show Forced to Flee, is going to be in Walnut Creek at the Leisure Center coming up soon? I can't think of the dates. Keep an eye out for it anyway, because those of us who live in Northern California.
It's the Bedford, Aileen, it's the Bedford Gallery.
Yes, the Bedford Gallery at the Leisure Center.
Yes.
You know the dates? I knew them, but
yes, I do. Let me find them. I think I do. February 26th through June 19th.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Cindy, I did want to say that I just tried myself to log on to Sanchez Art Center virtualgallery.org and I couldn't find the server.
Yeah, and that's a third party that we use, and I'm so sorry for this because I can't get back into it.
Oh, geez.
Let's see what I can do here, because we have about 6 other wonderful pieces to show you here. So I hope they're not doing maintenance there in the middle of the day, right? That's not good. But gonna see if I can come up with a quick workaround for you. Let's see, Lorraine.
Cindy, if you want, I can share my screen and I have a picture of the Pixel Ladies quilt
Great.
right up that I could do that now if you want me to do that while you're working.
Okay, that would be great. And then what I'm doing is I do have
Okay.
all the images on my computer, so just trying to bring those up too. But in the meantime, yeah, let's see
If
what
you
we-
allow me to share my screen, I can do it.
Yes, I am. Sorry, my computer right now is a little confused. So let me
Yeah, I bet.
come back to that. So I am now, let's see. So I am changing to have the panelists be able to share your screen. So you should be able to do that, Pixel Ladies.
Okay, let's see, share screen. Well, let's see, somebody else, Cindy, you're sharing your screen and it's on your files. Okay, let's see.
And then I'll pull up
Okay,
Lorraine.
here
I
we
have your
go.
piece
Here we
queued
go.
up.
Okay, Chris, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. Hi, I'm Deb Cachette and I'm half of the Pixel Ladies. And the other half is Chris Suzaki. And we actually collaborate on our artwork. We've known each other for over 40 years and we've been collaborating. Whoops, can you still see my screen?
No.
Go away.
You
Email.
switched
Away.
your tab.
It went away. Let's see.
We're reading your screen, but
We're
not your image.
having issues today.
We have
Okay,
computer
Chris, you
gremlins.
talk a minute and I will get my screen back up.
Okay, we have been friends for over 40 years. And unfortunately, we didn't meet in kindergarten. We actually met in college in German club. So a lot of our work deals with, we like to put in references to our time together in German club. But we tell stories in cloth. And we first make a collage on paper using snippets of magazines and newspapers and phrases, and then we have it printed on fabric. People who know us know we used to print our own fabric, but we made a decision to stop doing that with the advent of all the great print on demand fabric places. Okay, so Deb.
Okay, so what we do is we actually start out cutting up magazines and newspapers and placing them on paper and making a paper collage. And then we photograph it or scan it and then have it printed on fabric. So all these little snippets that you see are actual newspaper snippets. And we started out doing this series by cutting out words and phrases that had to do with color. And then we got, well, what can we do with these phrases about color? And Chris, go ahead.
So we came up with color really being a euphemism for race. And Deb came up with a pencil idea. And I said, yes, if we did color, if the color meant race. So we just started to explore issues of race in these pencil quilts. And please interrupt us whenever you're ready to go on or move to someone else. But we try to imbue these quilts with meaning, the pencils with meaning, even though they're just an everyday object. And in this particular case, we put different leads on the shafts because we really wanted to jar people's sense of the comfortable. And we continued that with the jagged quilting. And so that's about how that piece works. And we've been doing the pencil since 2013. So
I'm going
So
to
if
thank
somebody
you and
else
thank
has
you
a-
for
yeah.
pitching in out of order for us. And I'm going to bring up what I hope is an image here. Let's see if I can, here we go, of Lorraine's.
Okay.
And I'm bringing up in a different way. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Lorraine Woodruff Long. I live in San Francisco, And quilt melt is a quilt that I made with the idea to contrast very traditional quilt blocks with something that is organic and fluid. And the idea came to me from, I saw a really wonderful Azerbaijani artist named Faig Ahmed, and he takes very, very traditional Azerbaijani carpets. Sometimes people will call them Middle Eastern carpet or Persian carpets. And he takes these very traditional items from his culture that are infused with history and tradition, and combines them with those images turning into something else. It might be a pixelated image or a 3D image of it. I specifically was inspired by a piece that's in the Seattle Art Museum that he calls oiling. And he takes this hand-woven carpet, and it appears as though the pigments in the carpet are melting into a wavy pattern of oil on water. And it actually, is hanging on the wall, and it melts down onto the floor, and goes out at a 90-degree angle. So I was really inspired by that, and taking something that's traditional and that turns into something fluid and organic. And once I made quilt melt, to me, it really felt reminiscent of what we expect. That I thought of it more as a climate change message of we expect that the ice caps and glaciers will be there forever, and they're melting and changing into something unexpected in the future that we're all dealing with. The techniques that I used it's very traditional quilt pieced blocks on top, and all of the organic shapes are appliqued, and all of it is echo quilted, as we were just discussing earlier. So most of the pieces, particularly around you really can see it around the organic shapes. There's lots of waves from the echo quilting that I've done for this.
Great, thank you. And how providential that we had that bit of time to hear about echo quilting. So I'm going to stop the sharing on this. On my phone, I was able to see the virtual galleries again. So let me see if I can get that back up now here for the balance of the presentation. And we're going to have Lise here, hopefully in a little bit. Or maybe I'll just be showing you this on my phone. I was able to get the galleries there, but interestingly not on my computer. So what I will do is bring back up here on the screen just a version of this that I have on my computer. Okay. So this is quite powerful. Thanks for your patience with me.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us. This quilt is one of quite a few that I make that have a message or focus for the concern of our environment and the natural world. This focuses on the monarch butterfly that many of us know are declining in population. I have a special place in my heart for the monarchs because my brother, as a young boy, was involved in a tagging program to discover some of the routes of migration for the monarch butterfly. So I happen to love the monarch and their beauty and their colors and just everything about them. The black and white background was a composition of many, many pencil drawings that I have in my sketchbook. I just picked out a whole bunch of them and just kept making more. And the quilt was built in pieces over, say, a 6-month period. I just kept adding pieces and more pieces based on my drawings. The butterflies are all 3-dimensional. They're made out of fabric, and their wings, each forewing and rear wing, are made of 2 pieces of fabric sewn together and turned inside out with wire inside, and all put together on a body that I made out of pipe cleaners and beads. And they have little legs and antenna, and they're all hand painted. So I have, I probably had 50 little wings all on my desk, painted both sides, so because they're different on both sides. Anyway, so and then the quilting is all done on my tabletop domestic sewing machine with an 8.5-inch throat. Very time consuming, over 80 hours of quilting, over 250 hours of construction and building, 50 thread changes at least. I use all different kinds of thread, from silk to cotton to polyester, whatever texture that I like. And I love 3-dimensional work, so hence the butterflies. I guess that's it.
Do you always, while I'm bringing up the next piece, do you always work in such a large scale?
No, I work in smaller scale, but I've had a tendency to go large like that. I think that one is 60 by 60. So they're starting to end up that size. Yes. Quite
Okay.
a few. Yeah.
Yeah, because it is spectacular.
Oh,
So,
thank
okay,
you.
I'm bringing up Marie. Let's see if I can, there we go.
Oh, how cute.
Marie, are you available to speak?
Oh, I'm trying to.
There you go. We heard you. Okay, there you go. You got muted again. There. There you go. You're good.
Okay. I'm Marie Bergstead, and I live in San Francisco. I was inspired to create this piece when crossing the border from Mexico to the United States was prominent in the news. It was impossible to sort out everything that was happening. There were thousands of people coming from impossible lives in other countries trying to find one that was better. And I suppose there were probably a few people who wouldn't have made model citizens, but a serious issue for me was that families were being separated. This hit me right in my own backyard because my daughter is married to a fine Mexican man. My granddaughter straddles the line between 2 languages, and my daughter's a caring reach across the cultures. Everything I see with them and with other Latino families that I know are the strongest family bonds imaginable. Latino families kind of have a sacred bond, and to separate these families to me was probably the worst experience that they have encountered, even coming from a life of troubles. So this image is a portrait of my bicultural granddaughter stepping across the line, loving both sides without any boundaries. The piece is entirely stitched by hand, using quilting, crochet, knitting, embroidery, and button work. You will probably, I don't know if you can see very well because of the white background, but it isn't square. It's probably more square than anything I usually do, but there's the shape kind of Mexico on the bottom, and then she's going across the line near the Texas border and Arizona, etc. And I like to use textiles because they're the thing that we all know about and like to touch. And stitching everything by hand is touching. And I mean for people to be able to touch my pieces in their heart and somehow identify their own story. In this case, the story was about love crossing the borders. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. I have to ask, do you know how many buttons are in that piece? Because right there, you've got an amazing collection.
How many what are in it?
How many buttons did you use?
Oh, I don't know, sometimes my son-in-law, the one I tell about, comes, and if he isn't busy and the rest of us are talking, he'll square off a piece and start counting buttons on a piece that I make, and he'll say, you have so many hundred buttons in this space. So I have thousands and thousands of buttons back there as one of my collection of jars of buttons. So I'm sure there's more than 1,000.
Wow. Okay. Let's see if I can now bring up Sally's piece.
Hi, I'm Sally Wright. I live in West Los Angeles near UCLA, and we've lived in our house for 30 years. And when we moved in 30 years ago, this beautiful daylily was blooming in our garden. That's why I call it this, the title of this quilt is Hemerocallis, which is the botanical name for daylilies, and it's subtitled Beauty for a Day, because as we all know, they only last for a day. My garden is always an inspiration, and this came from a photograph of that daylily. It has been dug up, it's been divided, it's been replanted, it's been moved, it's been trampled on, and still it blooms early every summer. And I think it says something about being resolute and stubborn and reliable. And my husband just says it's my Georgia O'Keeffe moment. But anyway, I often work with, I do fused applique and raw edge applique, but in this instance, this is a whole cloth quilt that is entirely painted. It started as a white piece of prepared for dyeing cotton, and it was painted from my photograph. And I found that I really enjoyed this technique now that I learned from a class maybe 5 or 6 years ago with Susan Brubaker Knapp. And I use mostly transparent Pro-Chem paints and some jacquard, but mostly transparent paints, and doing it in layers, adding, doing it in washes, adding shadows and building up color. I find it a very immediate sort of technique that I enjoy. Then it's all quilted. Here I've done a lot of free motion quilting to emulate the veining in all of the petals, and thread painting to make the colors even deeper and and more contrast.
Wonderful shading and different coloring there. Really feels like the flowers right in front of us. Okay, I'm going to go now and pull up the next piece by let's see, Sue Kelly, Pacific. Thank you all. We use this workaround. Glad I've got everything on my computer here. There we go. Let's see. Do we have Sue with us?
Looks like Sue is logged in as a participant and not as a well, no, she's panelist. I just can't see.
Okay, let's see if we are having any trouble unmuting. Let's see. We can go ahead here and I will stop sharing this piece and bring up our other Sue here and see if we can come back to that. Okay.
And now I'm unmuted. Hi, I'm Sue Siefken from Modesto, California. This piece is called Sunset Moth of Madagascar. And the inspiration for this struck me more than 10 years ago. I was leafing through a National Geographic magazine, and I came across a double page spread of a microscopic photograph of the wing of the sunset moth. And it appeared that it was entirely dimensional, tiny iridescent petals. And I was so struck by it, I knew I wanted to make a quilt of it. So I contacted the magazine and then was directed to the photographer. I communicated with him. He was very intrigued and happy to let me use his photographs as inspiration. And then I tucked the permission and the idea away, returned to it repeatedly, but never really had an idea of how I was going to make this piece. Ultimately, I acquired the technical skills to realize it. And just around the time of COVID, I began working on it in earnest. The individual petals are made of spun bonded polyester that I have painted with iridescent paints and cut out individually into the petal shapes and then stitched on the top of them, mostly for effect, not for any particular structural reason. And then they're each stitched down to a black felt background. And then to bring home the origins as a sunset moth, I have painted also on spun bonded polyester, the image of the actual moth that appears up in the upper corner. It's been quilted in the black areas with a different color of polyester thread for each line of stitching, sort of echoing the multicolor image of the quilt. The sunset moth of Madagascar was initially identified as a butterfly because it is so incredibly colorful and because it flies during the daytime rather than at night, as most moths do. But ultimately it was changed to the category of a moth. The country of Madagascar, the island of Madagascar, is now undergoing a very intense drought, and all of the crops and foliage are dying. And I'm wondering whether this sunset moth of Madagascar will even survive. So that's it for the sunset moth. Thank you.
Well, we'll hope that's not it for it, but thank you for persisting in figuring out how to create that piece. It's, again, so many of these are so spectacular in person. I'm going to see, so I do see Sue Kelly over here, and I'm going to ask Sue if she would like to speak now that I think I have you over here as a panelist, and I will try to bring back up your piece, Pacific. Here we go. There we go. Hi, Sue.
Hello. What is the heck is going on here? Well, I'm here. You can't see me, or I can't see me, and that is not my piece.
Oh, okay.
I think that's Carol Frosillo, maybe.
Okay. Lovely piece. Sorry, I'm trying to
very nice, but I didn't make it.
grab them out of our.
So Cindy, Sue Kelly's piece.
There we go, in the pink. That's
yes.
right.
In the
You're
pink.
Wonderful in the pink that we have that's cheered so many people up. So let's see.
There it is.
There we go. But we got to see both. So thank you for your patience.
So, and I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what's going on here. I have a very strange looking Zoom screen today that I can't find any controls on it to show you my picture or anything, but
well, we can see you, and thank you for being here with our technical gremlins today.
Okay, so I'm glad this is cheering people up, and that's exactly how it originated. I was so anxious for the first couple of months of the lockdown in 2020, and everybody was stuck at home and feeling lonely and weird. And I did, however, I was pretty productive in my sewing room. And I every day when I come in here, I look around and I thank my grandmother because she's the one who gave me this lifelong love of sewing. So one night I had a dream, and in my dream I was in an art gallery with my grandmother, and she was all dressed in pink, as she often was in life. And we had our arms around each other and we wandered around the gallery looking at beautiful pictures and smiling. And I woke up feeling so calm and kind of restored from the anxiety that I'd been experiencing. So this was kind of inspired by that dream. And I did all kinds of things in this. I did some, I created a irregular pentagon that would tessellate, and I pieced individually all these pentagon shapes, kind of improv pieced them and put them all together. And the leaf pattern in the background was quilted and then colored in Inktense pencil and other things. I had fun. I had a piece of lace ribbon that I painted and used for a binding for it that actually worked really well. And I've used that technique on a couple of other quilts since then. So that's how it came to be. And I'm really pleased to have it in this show. And I feel like I'm in such good company in this group. Thank you very much. I do hope to get down to Pacifica if at all possible.
That would be wonderful. And the fuchsia was one time considered Pacifica's flower. So it was a good fit for things.
Cool.
So, okay. I'm seeing if anybody, let's see, we have a hand up from someone. And so Marianne Dresner has her hand up. If somebody would like to ask any questions now, and again, thank you for putting up with our technical difficulties and whatever happened to our virtual galleries. So let's see, Marianne, do you have something you'd like to ask and would like to unmute yourself?
Cindy, I don't have a question. I don't know how my hand got up.
Okay, it's just one of those, it's Zoom Gremlin Day, that's all.
Okay.
But we would be happy to if folks have any questions that they would like to ask. I'll just be glancing here to see if any hands are raised by attendees. I'm not seeing any right now. I would, if you are in the area or if you can make it up before the end of the show, which it closes on Sunday, February 13th. Please do come by. They're wonderful to see online, and I will send you all out the link to the virtual gallery where they are most of the time when our systems when the website is up, because they are great to look at online, but if you can get here in person, it's really wonderful. And we're always glad to, while our gallery hours are Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 1 to 5. If you need to visit at another time, just send us an email or give us a call, because we love to open the gallery doors for folks anytime and to show artwork. So please let us know. Again, the show is up through February 13th, and we have 2 other great shows up at the same time as well. But these really deserve to be seen in person if you can.
I agree. And Cindy, I want to end the program by saying what a pleasure it is always to work with you, and how much devotion and care you and the team have put into not just hanging the show, but hanging it so beautifully into the virtual gallery, this program. You are a wonderful collaborator, and it is always clear to me that the art and the artists come first. So thank you from all of us for what the Art Center is and does every day.
Well, Thank you so much. That's a beautiful way to end the program. We love having your work here. Thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the day. This was recorded even with all of our technical glitches, so we'll make that available later if you would like to share it with other folks or watch it again. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Seeing a lot of thanks there in the chat. So thank you.
Thank you very much.